Canada has decades of experience producing nuclear energy, and the federal government hopes that could provide a big boost for the economy. It's planning to scale up the use of nuclear power at home and sell Canadian technology abroad. The CBC's Karina Roman has the details of this new strategy.
Well, the government says numerous times in both the news release and the strategy that this is both an economic and an energy strategy. They want to modernize the CANDU reactor design by 2030 for use domestically, but also to export. They want to enable, and I'll get to what that means a little bit later, construction of up to 10 new large-scale reactors within Canada, with 2 under construction by 2035 and 5 more planned or under development by 2040. And they want at least one of those to be deployed outside of Ontario by 2035. They also want to get into micro-reactors, and they want to make sure they can show them to work by 2035 and then have them deployed to remote communities, think the North in this case, in the late 2030s. They want to boost Indigenous equity ownership in this industry. And as I mentioned, they want to expand export markets for Canadian-owned reactors beyond the countries we have already sold to in the past. The strategy also talks about beefing up Canada's role in making medical isotopes. Now, during the technical briefing we had this morning, it became clear there is no question we're talking $100 billion plus for all that the strategy wants to accomplish, something that no single government or private sector investor can do. But at the same time, there's no money committed to this strategy. When they talk about enabling construction and spurring the provinces to adopt more nuclear, they talk about de-risking the massive upfront costs to attract private investment. So that could mean low interest loans, use of the infrastructure bank, special export financing tools. It's also about spreading out the costs over time in order to keep electricity affordable. Have a listen to the minister.
A new build reactor with the refurbishments probably has a life of 80 to 90 years. There's a high upfront capital cost. We need to look at tools so that the current generation doesn't have to absorb the entire upfront cost of that large build reactor that is going to benefit multiple generations of Canadians going forward.
So they say expect a draft policy on specific federal financing options by April 2027. The strategy also proposes, Andrew, to streamline regulations under the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission, like a one-stop shop to assess and approve. And that certainly has Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre skeptical. Have a listen.
We will judge the Liberals based on the real results, not based on their latest promises. Our approach is to repeal the anti-development laws, depoliticize the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission, stop the Liberal obstacles so that we can actually produce more affordable and abundant electricity and other forms of energy across the country. But the focus has to be on results, not yet more promises and illusions.
And Karina, Minister Tim Hodgson said Canada can't stand still on this. What's behind this apparent nuclear renaissance?
Well, he says it's not a new start, but a new chapter. When Canadians think about Canada's nuclear past, they often think of Chalk River, for example. And the government argues that Canada didn't step back from nuclear, but we did kind of stagnate. And part of the reasons for that was the huge upfront cost to these projects, historic delays that obviously led to cost overruns in the past projects, concerns, of course, about nuclear waste and this health and safety concerns. The government says, though, that it's really now a recognized essential element of a modern, clean electricity grid. That said, critics say it's a mistake, and that the nuclear industry has been saying there's a renaissance for more than 2 decades. Have a listen.
The one thing that's, I think, genuinely new in this strategy is they acknowledge that we're in a time of increasing geopolitical risk. And I think we really should be questioning the wisdom of exporting a technology like nuclear, which is dangerous, and requires an assumption of stable governments for centuries in order to safely operate the technology and then deal with the waste. And when you look around the world right now, that isn't a bet I'd want to make, and I don't think Canada should be making it.
It's interesting that he mentions the geopolitical risk, because that is actually part of the impetus behind this so-called renaissance. The government believes there is enormous economic potential for Canada from start to finish. Canada can be very autonomous on this, have autonomy on it, because we do everything from uranium mining right down to the end being experts in waste management and all parts of the supply chain in between. Hodgson says that this could double jobs in the industry from a current 90,000 to 180,000. But the government says right now we're not at our potential, and they see other countries also seeing the potential of nuclear, that the race is now on to be in this space, and it's bolstered by global factors. When you look at the trade situation with the U.S., when you look at the recent energy crisis because of the U.S. and Israeli war with Iran, it makes nuclear proponents say that now actually is the time to really expand in this space, despite what critics say.